Maybe it's possible that Bryce Young is not quite the dud that many assumed he was.
It's been cool to see him bounce back these last few weeks and play some great football because, I know he has it. I've seen it for a long time, and he gave us a scare today, man, because he plays tall.
I love a story with a happy ending, and although this young man's career hasn't concluded, after the performance we've seen from him recently and over the past weekend, we would not be doing our jobs if we didn't bring you this update, and it's a pretty awesome update if you're a Carolina Panthers fan. So before we get to the content, we are on the grind to 1 million subscribers. Make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications to help us get to that goal. And now that we got all that out of the way, Tyreek Hill just needs 1 yard on Thanksgiving for you to make money on PrizePicks, and here's how to take advantage. First, sign up for PrizePicks and use my promo code Mikerophone to get an additional $50 when you make an entry of $5. Then pick Tyreek Hill to get 1 receiving yard and combine it with another square to get 3 extra money, or 2 squares to 5 extra money. I give away a lot of my picks for free on Instagram at The Flight Mike and on Snapchat Flight Mike Snap, and this past weekend we absolutely crushed it, hitting on 4 of our picks, and a lot of you tailed these picks on Instagram and Snapchat and made money as well. So hurry up and take advantage of this offer. It's only available until Thanksgiving Day. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The story of Bryce Young is one of the most tragic stories in the NFL because not only is it a gigantic failure on the organization that drafted him in constructing a good team around him, but the very next player that was selected after him, CJ Stroud, was not only drafted into a significantly better situation, but had a significantly better career than Bryce so far. And it's really not even close. I mean, CJ Stroud was drafted in a situation where the team had a plethora of assets, was able to select their captain on offense and one of the best defensive players in the NFL in back-to-back picks. And that's all as a result of the amount of capital they amassed from robbing the Cleveland Browns from their draft picks as a result of trading them Deshaun Watson. And in year 1, CJ Stroud looked incredible. I mean, over 4,100 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, winning rookie of the year. And meanwhile, Bryce Young was in the worst possible situation for any player to be drafted into. The team that selected him decided to give up his number 1 wide receiver, the 9th overall pick, the 61st overall pick in that same draft, and the pick that would turn into the number 1 overall pick in this past NFL draft and next year's 2nd round pick in return for Bryce Young, meaning Bryce Young had absolutely nobody to throw the football to except the past his prime Adam Thielen. And this is a Carolina Panthers team that has had a history of making truly terrible decisions, whether it was rejecting a remarkable trade for Brian Burns. The Rams wanted to give up 2 first-round picks and a 2nd-round pick to get Burns, but the Panthers turned it down only to trade him for a 2nd-round pick a mere 16 months later. The Christian McCaffrey trade wasn't the worst trade in my opinion, but this was a team that was completely barren of all of its assets, and at the same time, you're seeing all of their former quarterbacks go on to different teams and have tremendous amounts of success, whether it was Baker Mayfield on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or Sam Darnold on the Minnesota Vikings, or Cam Newton getting rejected by Shedeur Sanders.
Weird? You know this shit there, bro.
Or Cam Newton getting bullied by a bunch of kids at his own camp.
You're a free agent. You're a free agent. Rich. You're a free agent. You about to be poor. I'm rich. You about to be poor. I'm rich. You about to be poor. I'm rich.
Or Cam Newton making questionable gestures in front of said kids.
Yes. No, you met me. Yes. I met you. When? Tell me about it. Show me a picture. Show me a picture. I got an autograph. How many rings you got? Show me a picture. 9. I got a question. 9. Oh, shit. We got the same amounts. And no, but we don't got the same bank account.
Or Cam Newton saying he's okay. We'll stop with the Cam Newton. So the David Tepper era so far for the Carolina Panthers has been a disaster. I mean, David Tepper is up there for one of the worst owners in the NFL currently, and it's primarily because he's one of those owners that loves to micromanage his team and essentially dig himself a deeper and deeper hole as opposed to trying to patiently rebuild the team as it is. The Panthers had a plethora of assets once upon a time, and although they got a nice return for some of those pieces, the Christian McCaffrey trade wasn't so bad. The Panthers being being reluctant to wait and consistently chasing the pot of gold so they can be competitive as soon as possible, and then that blowing up in their faces and just digging a deeper and deeper hole for themselves. So when the Carolina Panthers drafted Bryce Young, they thought, okay, all of our problems are solved. We have the best quarterback in this year's NFL draft, but they didn't even select the best quarterback in that NFL draft, at least at the time. What made it worse was the fact that not only did Bryce Young not have a good offensive line, not only did Bryce Young not have a good wide receiver to throw the football to, except 34-year-old Adam Thielen, but Bryce Young also had to deal with a revolving door at the head coaching position in his rookie season. I mean, it's kind of crazy. You remember when Josh McCown was saying this to CJ Stroud?
Well, no, I got to do
It's insane when you think about the fact that this was supposed to be Josh McCown's first year as an assistant head coach for the Carolina Panthers, and he would get fired just 7 months later. Frank Reich even implied that he wanted CJ Stroud over Bryce Young.
There's different philosophies in ownership. You know what I mean? Some owners kind of stay away and don't engage a whole lot. Other owners do. And his philosophy is he's going to engage.
And probably the best part of all was when David Tepper implied that the Panthers thought they were going to get CJ Stroud.
Originally, we were going to go to the number 2 pick, and we thought we would get CJ because we thought the Texans were going to pick Bryce. And listen, we preferred Bryce. He was our number 1 pick. We had a lot of conviction. I supported the coaches, I supported the scouts, and I supported Frank Reich. So as far as Bryce Young is concerned, we are totally confident in that pick.
So that's all out the window. At this point, the Panthers made their decision. It was essentially going to extend the duration of the Carolina Panthers rebuild, which it is what it is at this point. But I have to admit, they made a lot of good decisions over this past offseason. I mean, firing Scott Fitterer is a great decision. Bringing in Dan Morgan to do whatever he can was also a solid decision. And hiring Dave Canales, a coach that is credited for the resurgence of Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, is another good decision. Dan Morgan was very aggressive in the offseason, in the best way he could be, to be honest. The best help that they could get Bryce Young is a clean pocket. That's the best way a quarterback could develop. So they signed Robert Hunt to a 5-year, $100 million deal, Damian Lewis to a 4-year, $53 million deal, and they got Austin Corbett back. They also signed a bunch of players to prove-it contracts, but my favorite being a trade that they made for Deontay Johnson. The Deontay Johnson trade made a lot of sense for the Carolina Panthers because they were absolutely desperate for any type of wide receiver help, so they traded Dante Jackson and the 178th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft to get Deontay Johnson. My problem with this was, going into this season, things did not look good for Bryce Young. I mean, we can play so many clips from the earlier part of the season, whether it's him throwing this pass into double coverage, I don't know what the hell this play even is, and then Dave Canales coming out and saying Bryce is our QB.
Bryce is our quarterback. We're going to just continue to shore up and fix the things we need to fundamentally from a scheme standpoint. All those things. These are all valuable reps. These are all valuable games. We'll learn a lot from this game, and hopefully we'll take another step this week.
Before the Panthers decided to bench Bryce Young. Now, this was a very uncomfortable decision to make, but I didn't take it as this is the end of Bryce Young's career. You really don't have a choice. There isn't a better quarterback that you can attain this offseason. I mean, the quarterback free agency class is looking like players like Sam Darnold and Justin Fields. The quarterback draft class is Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, and they could be good players, don't get me wrong, but it's not necessarily as exciting as last year's quarterback class. So at the end of the day, you really don't have a choice but to keep trying to make it work with Bryce Young, and considering the fact that you really haven't put this young man into a situation to succeed, that's the best way to do it. Bryce Young took the benching like a champion. I mean, Andy Dalton would have some up and down games for the Carolina Panthers, but it's exactly what Bryce Young needed, to take a step back and just observe how he needs to run this team, how he needs to be a leader, learn from a veteran QB. And you can see week after week, Bryce Young took it well.
And really, they played here in the second half, just a ball control style of offense.
Whether it was a win or a loss, he was as good of a teammate as he possibly could be. And all of this led to a pretty cool moment over this past weekend. Bryce Young would get his starting job back after Andy Dalton would get injured. And despite him not having the greatest game once Andy Dalton was injured, the Carolina Panthers realized that enough is enough, and it's time to put Bryce Young back in. Young would lose to the Denver Broncos and would throw 2 interceptions, but he wasn't nearly as as horrific as he was in week 1. He would then lead him to a victory against the New Orleans Saints, but he would throw for sub 200 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Bear in mind that at this time, I criticized one of Dan Morgan's decisions, and that's trading Deontay Johnson and a 6th round pick to the Baltimore Ravens for a 5th round pick, which I know on paper sounds really nice. And then you realize the Carolina Panthers 6th round pick is probably going to be something like 15 picks later than the Baltimore Ravens 5th round pick. I honestly think they should have just kept Deontay Johnson to potentially make Bryce Young's job a little easier, but that didn't stop Bryce Young. He would lead the Carolina Panthers to a victory over the New York Giants in overtime before having the biggest challenge of his career against the Kansas City Chiefs. This kind of reminded me of Zach Wilson's game against Kansas City last year. I don't know what it is about the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe the fact that you're going up against the best team in the NFL and the defending Super Bowl champs makes you really want to step up your A game. But in this particular game, Bryce Young was so good that I think it turned around not only the Carolina Panthers season, but his career. I mean, listen to how his teammates are talking about him. I mean, this is Chuba Hubbard.
I mean, I don't really count the times that he's talked, but I'm sure he's talked plenty of times. Like I said, he's a great leader. Like I said, I'm going to kind of keep what was said in-house, but definitely said the right thing.
According to David Newton, Bryce Young addressed the team after the game, and Robert Hunt was so inspired he wanted to go out and play again. Listen to what J.C. Horn has to say about Bryce Young.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. It was good for other people to see. You know, just having a conversation with him since he got here, I knew that was in him. You know, he a dog. Like, I don't let the quiet talk, the soft talking fool y'all. Like, Bryce a real dog. And it came out after the game when he talked to the team, and you know, that's what we need.
Are we seeing more of that dog during the game now? Because it seems like something has changed with him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He playing better. That's all I know. Like, you know, I don't really know much about quarterback, but I know he doing what he do. Driving the ball down the field, putting points up. Like I said, as a defense, we just got to help him out a little bit, and this whole game would have went different.
Most importantly, look at what this human being that currently has the 2nd most interceptions thrown in the NFL this year had to say about Bryce Young.
It's been cool to see him bounce back these last few weeks and play some great football because, you know, I know he has it. I've seen it for a long time, and he gave us a scare today, man, because he plays tall. He's been a great player for a long time and won a lot of football games.
And I wanted to make sure we showed off his best throws, even the ones that went incomplete. I mean, in this case, Bryce Young literally stares into pressure, is able to get the ball out, and is able to complete this for a huge gain. I mean, if you told me in week 1 that Bryce Young was going to be able to stare in the eyes of pressure, find his wide receiver, throw this with pinpoint accuracy, I wouldn't have believed you. But that wasn't the only great throw he made today. I mean, look at a couple of these throws. They're absolute dimes. Some of them are when he's getting pressured, and some of them are when he has a much more cleaner pocket. It's stuff that we really didn't expect from Bryce Young because a few weeks ago, he wasn't able to even find his open receivers. Now he trusts his receivers to make plays for him and is throwing significantly more accurately. It's just so incredible because I feel like this season has taught us a lot in regards to quarterback development, and probably this is one of my favorite throws because you can't really see the clock over here, but this particular play was when the Panthers were down by 8 points with 2 minutes and 53 seconds left to go in the 4th quarter. So a clutch drive for Bryce Young, and he's able to fit this into a very, very tight window to Xavier Leggett, but he wasn't able to come down with it. This is just a drop by his rookie wide receiver. The throw was on the money. It was the right read for Bryce Young. And look, some of these throws are incomplete, don't get me wrong, but when you're staring in the face of pressure against one of the better pass rushes in the NFL, when you're undersized as a quarterback, but you're also giving your wide receiver a fighting chance to make a play on the ball, that's really all you can ask for as a coach from your quarterback in the NFL, especially when your quarterback doesn't necessarily have the best weapons to throw to and doesn't really have the best supporting cast. I mean, this is such a tremendous leap from Bryce Young, and we really can't overstate this. It's a huge improvement in his game, and if some of these passes were caught by his wide receivers, this could have been one of the craziest upsets in the entire NFL. And it would have been a cool upset, honestly. I wish we would have saw it. But it seems like Bryce Young is making the right reads. He's improving tremendously. His teammates are starting to believe in him. And this isn't my ideal stat. I don't like painting this type of narrative, but I gotta put this out there. Obviously, CJ Stroud has had a rough couple of weeks. I mean, this past weekend especially, the way that game ended was kind of embarrassing. Him getting pushed into his own end zone for a safety. And typically CJ Stroud is an incredible quarterback, and I'm not trying to paint a narrative that one is better than the other, but over the past 3 games, CJ Stroud has 3 touchdowns and 5 interceptions for an average rating of 73.5, and he's 1-2. Bryce Young has 3 TDs, 1 interception, an average rating of 85.6, and he's 2-1. Now, I do also want to mention that Bryce Young's wins are against the Giants and the Saints, but this performance against the Chiefs definitely digs him out of bust territory. I hope this is the start of something new. I hope the Panthers continue to build around him and get him weapons and really take advantage of his rookie scale contract and just help him develop, because he's clearly a talented QB. And I do also want to say that CJ Stroud did face off against the Lions, the Cowboys, and then lost to the Titans, so I don't think the level of competition was significantly greater than what Bryce Young faced, because CJ Stroud went up against the best team in the NFC, Bryce Young went up against the best team in the AFC. They both lost those games. CJ beat one of the worst teams in the NFC in the Dallas Cowboys, and then lost to one of the worst teams in the NFL in the Tennessee Titans. Now, I'm gonna give it some time, because CJ also lost to the New York Jets, and he was just terrible in that game, going 11 for 30 with a 37% completion percentage. But if you guys think it's time for us to do a deep dive on what's going on with him, let me know in the comment section down below. Apart from that, the Dallas Cowboys have come up with a brand new revolutionary way to make a really dumb decision. Jerry Jones has already made his decision on who he wants to coach the Cowboys next, and it's really depressing. I have our own separate video on that, and I'll leave it on the end screen. And aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.